Snow fell so thick it swallowed sound itself. At the edge of the abandoned village, Colonel Viktor Petrov stood on the balcony of what had once been a government building. He raised his rangefinder, studied the numbers, and laughed. The sound carried across the frozen valley like mockery-given voice. 1,800 meters. Out of range, out of danger, out of every conceivable threat that the Americans could throw at him. He lit a cigarette, cupping his hands against the wind. The orange glow illuminated the satisfied curve of his smile. Behind him, his men moved with the confidence of professionals who knew they had already won. What Petrov did not know was that on a mountain peak across the valley, a 27-year-old woman was adjusting her breathing to match each frozen gust of wind. She had no radio yet, no team, just snow, heartbeat, and a rifle that had been waiting for this moment for 6 years. The valley had died months ago. What remained were skeletal buildings with their windows blown out like empty eye sockets. Snow filled the streets where vehicles had burned down to their frames. The wind moved through it all with a sound like distant breathing, as if the earth itself was exhaling its final breath before the killing began. Captain Declan Mercer pressed himself against a concrete wall, feeling the cold seep through 3 layers of tactical gear. His team was scattered across 2 buildings, pinned down by overlapping fields of fire. 43 souls under his command. 43 lives he had sworn to bring home. The enemy held the high ground. Every route out was covered. Every angle of escape had been calculated and blocked by men who knew exactly what they were doing. His radio crackled with static. Lost visual on the drone. Corporal Finch Brody's voice came through tight with controlled fear. Jamming is widespread. We're blind, sir. Mercer checked his tactical tablet. The display showed their position as a red cluster surrounded by orange threat markers. They had walked into a prepared kill zone. Professional work, the kind that suggested military training, not militia. Options, he said quietly. Sergeant First Class Miranda Holloway appeared beside him, snow already gathering on her shoulders. She was 30 years old, had spent 6 years teaching advanced marksmanship before volunteering for field duty. She knew the mathematics of long-range shooting the way surgeons knew anatomy. None good, Captain. Her voice was flat, honest. They've got overlapping sight lines from 3 positions. Heavy weapons on elevated ground. If we move, they'll cut us apart. Mercer studied the enemy positions through his scope. The main command post was established in what had been a municipal building, fortified, protected, and exactly 1,800 meters away according to his laser rangefinder. That distance put them beyond the effective range of anything his team carried. The enemy knew it. They were taking their time, methodical, patient. In another 90 minutes, when darkness fell, they would tighten the noose. Sir, Brody's voice dropped to something just above a whisper. There's someone here. Says she was attached to our unit, but I don't have any record. Building C, top floor. Mercer felt something cold settle in his stomach that had nothing to do with the temperature. Who cleared her? Nobody, sir. She just appeared. Mercer moved through the ruined structure, his team covering angles as he climbed. The stairs groaned under his weight, metal treads slick with ice. Snow had gotten inside through collapsed walls, creating drifts against what remained of the furniture. She was waiting on the 6th floor. Her gear was minimal. No rank insignia, no unit patch. Just winter camouflage that looked hand-modified, worn in ways that spoke of long use rather than regulation issue. Her face was young, but her eyes were old. The kind of eyes that had seen things most people only read about in classified reports. Her rifle lay beside her. It was a custom-build Mercer did not recognize. The scope alone probably cost more than his entire loadout. The weapon looked ancient and modern at the same time, like something that had been rebuilt so many times it had transcended its original form. Captain Mercer. She did not salute, did not stand. just acknowledged his presence with the barest nod, her attention never leaving the window. And you are attached to your unit as of 3 hours ago. Her voice was quiet, neutral, the kind of voice that had learned not to carry, not to echo, not to give away position. Command thought you might need specialized support. Mercer looked at her rifle, then at the tactical situation on his tablet. We're pinned down by a prepared position 1.8 kilometers out. Unless you've got artillery in your pocket, I'm not sure what kind of support you can offer. I know the distance. She was already moving to the window, studying the terrain through binoculars that had seen better days. Her movements were economical, precise. Every gesture served a purpose. Municipal building, 3 stories, reinforced position, command element visible on the roof. She lowered the binoculars. When does the wind shift? Mercer stared at her. What? The wind. It's been coming from the northeast for the past 2 hours. Weather patterns suggest it'll shift to northwest around 1600 hours. I need confirmation. Holloway had followed him up. She checked her portable weather station, then looked up with surprise that quickly transformed into skepticism. She's right. Shift predicted at 15:57. The woman nodded once, then began unpacking her rifle with movements so practiced they looked like meditation. Each piece emerged from its case with reverence. Each component was checked, examined, handled with the care most people reserve for sacred objects. Mercer felt something cold trace down his spine. You're planning to take a shot at 1.8 kilometers. It was not a question. Yes, that's beyond any standard engagement parameters. No. She fitted the rifle together, each piece clicking into place with precision. It's just very difficult. Holloway stepped forward, her expression hardening. Captain, with all respect, this is lunacy. She looked at the woman, then at the distance to target, then back again. I've been teaching advanced marksmanship for 6 years. What she's suggesting exists only in theoretical discussions. I'm aware of the challenges. Are you? Holloway pulled up ballistic software on her tablet, her fingers moving with the urgency of someone trying to prevent a disaster. Wind drift alone could push the round 3 meters off target. That's not accounting for temperature, humidity, the Coriolis effect, or a dozen other variables. And that's assuming the projectile remains stable through the entire flight. I understand. Do you? Because at that distance, we're talking about a flight time of over 3 seconds. 3 seconds during which the target could move. The wind could shift. Thermal currents could alter the trajectory. There are 100 ways this shot could fail. So I won't let it fail. The single statement hung in the air like a challenge. Captain Mercer has 43 people trapped in a kill zone. The woman looked at Mercer directly for the first time. Her eyes were gray, the color of winter sky before a storm. In 90 minutes, it'll be dark. When it's dark, he won't have 43 people anymore. She turned back to the window. This is the only shot that might work, which means it has to work. The radio crackled to life with a voice that made Mercer straighten. Badger 6, this is Overwatch Actual. Do you copy? The voice was older, graveled by decades of cigarettes and combat. It carried the weight of authority that came not from rank, but from experience earned in places that didn't appear on any official record. Overwatch Actual, this is Badger 6. We copy. I understand you've received a package. Mercer glanced at the woman. She showed no reaction to the voice, but something in her posture had changed. A subtle tension, a stillness that spoke of shared history. Affirmative. Package received. Sir, can you confirm authorization? Authorization is confirmed at the highest level, Captain. The package is exactly what you need. Sir, with respect, the engagement parameters seem beyond... I know the parameters. The voice softened slightly. I also know what that rifle can do in the right hands. Let her work. Holloway was still shaking her head. Sir, who is this person? There's nothing in our database. Nothing in any system I can access. That's by design, Sergeant. The radio went quiet for a moment. When the voice returned, it carried something that might have been memory, might have been regret. Her name is Kira Ashford, Sergeant First Class, Delta. Beyond that, you don't need to know. What you need to know is that 6 years ago, I made a promise to a dying man. Today, she keeps that promise. Kira's hands paused over her rifle, just for a heartbeat. Then they continued their work. Let her work, Captain, and pray that the wind cooperates. The radio clicked off. Mercer turned to Kira, questions forming on his lips. But she was already moving, already preparing, already calculating angles and distances that existed only in the space between mathematics and faith. Who was that? Someone who taught me everything I know. She did not look up from her rifle. His name is Silas Cormac, Master Sergeant. They call him Old Bear. And the dying man he mentioned? For the first time, emotion flickered across Kira's face. Pain, old and deep, buried under years of discipline. My father. Cannot is a word for quitters. Something that took shots no one believed were achievable, in places that officially did not exist, against targets that the world would never know had been eliminated. She had been waiting for Petrov ever since, and now he was standing on a balcony 1,800 meters away, confident in the mathematics of distance. The same distance, Kira said quietly, still not looking at Mercer. Almost exactly the same distance my father was trying to reach when he was captured. He was going to take a shot at 1,800 meters. He never made it to the position. She chambered around with a sound like a prayer being answered. Today I will. Old Bear's voice crackled through the radio again, this time on a private channel. Kira, I'm here. You know who's down there. I know. A pause, the sound of static filling the space where words should have been. I didn't tell you before because you needed to focus. You needed to see 43 soldiers who need saving, not one man who deserves killing. Do you understand? I understand. Your father was the best I ever trained. Until you. What he couldn't do, you can. Not because you're better, because you learned from his mistake. Because you spent 6 years making sure you would never hesitate again. Kira closed her eyes. Behind her, she could hear Mercer and Holloway arguing in hushed tones, debating her sanity, questioning her credentials. None of it mattered. The shot is 1,147 meters, Old Bear continued. There's a canyon at 900 meters that creates a wind vortex. Unpredictable, violent. There's an 8-second window when the vortex stabilizes, every 3 to 4 minutes. You have to take the shot in that window or not at all. I know. Your father figured out that window. He wrote it in his notes. I found them after he was gone. He knew the shot was achievable. He just ran out of time. Kira opened her eyes. Through the window, she could see the valley stretching out before her. Snow and stone and the ghosts of everyone who had ever died in this forgotten place. I won't run out of time. I know you won't. Old Bear's voice softened. I promised Daniel I would make you into the sniper he always knew you could be. Today you proved that promise meant something. Not for revenge, not for hatred, for the 43 people counting on you. And for him. And for him. The radio clicked off. Kira finished assembling her rifle and moved to the window. The cold wrapped around her like an old friend, like a blessing, like the winter itself was choosing its champion. She began her calculations. She moved alone. Mercer had offered an escort, but she refused with a shake of her head. What she needed to do required solitude, required the absolute focus that came only when there was no one else to worry about, no one else whose life depended on her choices in that moment. Watching her disappear into the ruined village was like watching a ghost slip between worlds. Tracker, Mercer ordered. Brody worked his equipment, thermal imaging, struggling against the cold. She's using the cold zones, Captain, staying where her heat signature blends with ambient temperature. That's advanced fieldcraft. the kind you don't learn in any school I know about. Can you maintain visual? Barely. She's good, sir. Really good. On the screen, Kira's heat signature flickered in and out of existence, moving through spaces that seemed too narrow, climbing structures that should have collapsed, finding paths that existed only for those who knew how to look. And then she was gone. Lost her. Mercer stared at the screen, at the empty space where a woman had been. All we can do now is wait. Kira navigated the dead village with the certainty of someone who had done this before. Not here, but in places like it. Abandoned cities, forgotten towns, the quiet spaces where the world's violence played out far from cameras and headlines. She avoided the main streets where enemy drones might patrol. Moved through buildings, climbing through gaps in walls where conventional paths had collapsed. The snow worked in her favor, muffling her footsteps, erasing her tracks as quickly as she made them. The mountain she needed was 2 kilometers away. She covered the distance in 40 minutes, moving in bursts, stopping to observe, waiting for patrols to pass, becoming part of the landscape itself. The climb was the hardest part. Vertical rock face slicked with ice, handholds that crumbled under pressure, wind that tried to tear her from the stone with every gust. She had brought minimal gear to keep her weight down, which meant climbing without the safety of proper anchors. One slip would mean death. She did not slip. Halfway up, she paused to rest. Her fingers were numb despite the gloves. Her lungs burned with the thin, cold air. Below her, the valley spread out like a white shroud, beautiful and deadly in equal measure. She remembered climbing with her father when she was young, before the army, before the rifle, before any of it. They would hike into the mountains of Montana, just the two of them, and he would teach her to read the land, to see what others missed, to understand that the world was full of invisible patterns waiting to be discovered. The wind talks, he had told her once. Most people don't know how to listen, but if you're patient, if you're quiet, it will tell you everything you need to know. She listened now. The wind was telling her that the weather was shifting, that the window she needed would open in approximately 47 minutes, that she had just enough time to reach the position, set up her rifle, and make the calculations. Just enough time, nothing to spare. She continued climbing. Viktor Petrov crushed out his cigarette and checked the rangefinder again. 1,800 meters. The American team was exactly where his intelligence had predicted. Trapped, surrounded, with nowhere to go, and no way to call for effective support in time. Beautiful work, he said to his deputy, a nervous young captain named Alexei. We give them another hour, then move in during twilight. Clean operation. Alexei shifted uncomfortably. Sir, their sniper capabilities concern me. Their capabilities are irrelevant at this range. Petrov laughed, gesturing at the open ground between their positions. Look at this distance. Look at this weather. What do you think they're going to do? Throw rocks at us? Around him, the command post hummed with confident activity. Radio operators coordinated the surrounding units. Heavy weapons crews checked their fields of fire. Western snipers are overrated. All their fancy equipment, their endless training, and for what? So they can take shots at 600-700 meters? We do that with iron sights. Yes, sir. You worry too much, Alexei. Petrov exhaled smoke into the frozen air. That's why you're still a captain. You need to learn when you've won, and we've won. They have no artillery, no air support, no way to reach us. He spread his arms wide, embracing the cold, the distance, the absolute certainty of his position. In 2 hours, this entire operation will be over. He stopped. Alexei had frozen, staring at something through his binoculars. His face had gone pale. What is it? Movement. Top of the eastern ridge. 1,200 meters from the American position. 1,800 from us. Petrov took the binoculars. The ridge was a jagged line of rock and ice, barely visible through the falling snow. It took him a moment to find what Alexei had seen, a shape, barely visible against the white background, moving with purpose toward a specific point. One person, he said dismissively. Forward observer, maybe. Doesn't matter. They can watch all they want. At this distance, watching is all they can do. Sir, Alexei's voice had dropped. That's a direct line to us. Approximately 1,800 meters. Clear sight line. Petrov did the math in his head. He laughed. You think that's a sniper? Trying to shoot almost 2 kilometers in this weather? He clapped Alexei on the shoulder. Relax. Even if they have their best shooter over there, even if they have perfect equipment, the wind alone would make that shot pure fantasy. But something cold had settled in his stomach. A memory, 6 years old, a different valley. A man named Daniel Ashford, who had been trying to reach a shooting position when Petrov's team intercepted him. A man who had sworn, with his dying breath, that someone would finish what he started. Petrov had laughed then too. He stopped laughing now. Increased security on this position. I want eyes on that ridge at all times. Sir, just do it. He turned back to the valley, to the distance that had always protected him, and for the first time in years, Viktor Petrov felt something he had almost forgotten. Doubt. The position was perfect. Kira reached the top of the ridge with 18 minutes to spare. The spot her father had identified 6 years ago, written in notes that Old Bear had preserved like Holy Scripture. A natural depression in the rock that provided cover from the wind while still offering a clear sight line to the target. She set up her rifle with movements that had become ritual. Bipod first, positioned on stable rock, adjusted for angle. Then the rifle itself settled into the mount with the precision of a surgeon placing instruments. Stock against her shoulder, cheek against the rest, eye to the scope. The world narrowed. Through 12-power magnification, the municipal building leaped into focus. She could see the enemy command post clearly now. 6 figures on the roof and balcony. The one in the center wore better gear than the others, moved with authority. Viktor Petrov. He was lighting another cigarette, watching the smoke get torn away by the wind, checking his watch, saying something that made his men laugh. He felt safe. The crosshairs settled on his chest, then drifted up to his head. At this distance, she would need to aim high, very high. The bullet would drop 12 meters during its flight. She would be shooting at empty air, trusting that gravity and velocity would eventually intersect with the target's position. But not yet. The wind was wrong. She pulled out her notebook and began the calculations that would turn the theoretical into the achievable. The numbers lived in her notebook like prayers. She did not use a ballistic computer. Those were for people who trusted machines more than they trusted themselves. She used paper, pencil, and experience compressed into formulas that had been tested with blood. Wind at target, 14 mph from northeast, gusting to 18. Wind at midpoint, estimated 12 mph. Variable due to canyon vortex. Wind at her position, 60 mph. Steady for now, but predicted to shift. Temperature, -18 Celsius. Barometric pressure, 1,119 millibars. Distance, 1,147 meters exactly, accounting for angle and elevation difference. She wrote it all down in cramped handwriting that had gotten smaller over the years, as if trying to compress the chaos of ballistics into manageable symbols. The bullet would drop 12 meters over the course of its flight. 12 meters. That meant aiming at a point in empty air that existed only in theory, trusting that gravity and velocity would eventually intersect with a human being standing on a balcony nearly 2 kilometers away. The wind would push the round laterally. At this distance, a 14-Warshoid crosswind meant 4.5 meters of drift. But the wind was not constant. It changed with altitude, with temperature, with terrain features that created pockets of turbulence invisible to the naked eye. And then there was the canyon. At 900 meters, a gap in the ridge created a vortex. Wind spiraling in patterns that defied prediction. Any bullet passing through that zone would be grabbed, twisted, thrown off course by forces that changed from second to second, unless she timed it perfectly. Old Bear's voice echoed in her memory. The vortex stabilizes for 8 seconds every 3 to 4 minutes. The wind patterns align just long enough for a bullet to pass through clean. Your father figured it out. He wrote it in his notes. 8 seconds. That's your window. She checked her watch. 12 minutes until the next window. 12 minutes to prepare for a shot that would take 3.2 seconds to complete. The radio crackled. Old Bear's voice came through, but different now. Heavier, as if the words he was about to speak had been weighing on him for years. Kira, there's something I need to tell you. Something I should have told you before you left. She did not stop her calculations. Could not afford to. I'm listening. The man on that balcony, Viktor Petrov. I know you've been hunting him for 3 years, ever since intelligence connected him to your father's capture. I know who he is. No, you don't. Not completely. Her pencil paused. 6 years ago, when your father was taken, we thought it was a random patrol. Bad luck. Wrong place, wrong time. That's what the official report said. That's what I believed for 3 years. The wind howled outside her position. Snow swirled past the rocks. Then I found his field notes, the ones he was carrying when he was captured. Petrov's men took his weapons, his radio, his identification, but they missed a waterproof pouch hidden in his boot. It contained his calculations for the shot and a name. Kira's throat tightened. Petrov didn't stumble onto your father by accident. He was hunting him. There was a bounty on Daniel Ashford's head. $1 million for the sniper who had killed 17 high-value targets in 18 months. Petrov tracked him for 2 weeks, waited until Daniel was isolated, then sprung the trap. Through her scope, Petrov was lighting another cigarette. Casual, confident, the same man who had hunted her father like prey. The compound where they held him, the position where you took your shot. Petrov chose it specifically because it was 400 meters from any viable sniper position. He knew Daniel's daughter was a shooter. He was gambling that you would try to save him, and he was gambling that you would miss. Her hands had started to tremble. He killed your father to make a point, Kira, to prove that American snipers weren't as good as their reputation. He's been dining out on that story for 6 years, bragging about how he broke the great Daniel Ashford. Why didn't you tell me before? Because I needed you focused on saving 43 lives, not on revenge. Revenge makes your hands shake. Revenge makes you rush the shot. Revenge is why snipers miss. She looked at her trembling hands. Old Bear was right. But now you know, and now you have a choice. You can let the anger take over. Let it ruin everything you've worked for. Or you can take a breath, steady your hands, and show Viktor Petrov what Daniel Ashford's daughter is truly capable of. Kira closed her eyes. In the darkness behind her eyelids, she saw her father's face. Not as he had looked through the scope in his final moments. As he had looked when she was young, teaching her to shoot, teaching her to breathe, teaching her that the rifle was not a weapon of anger, but an instrument of precision. Revenge makes your hands shake, she repeated quietly. That's right. But justice doesn't. She opened her eyes. Her hands were steady. I'm not going to kill him because he murdered my father. I'm going to kill him because he's about to murder 43 Americans. The fact that it's him just means I won't lose any sleep over it. Old Bear was quiet for a moment. Your father would be proud. I know. She returned to her calculations. Holloway's voice came through the radio, quieter than before. Ashford. Kira did not respond immediately. She was deep in her calculations, translating variables into adjustments. I heard what Cormac said. About your father. About Petrov. Still no response. I've been teaching marksmanship for 6 years. I thought I knew everything about long-range shooting. Thought I knew what was achievable and what wasn't. A pause. I was wrong. Kira's pencil kept moving. I watched the recordings from your training sessions. Cormac sent them to me while you were climbing. The shots you made, the conditions you shot in. I've never seen anything like it. The pencil stopped. I'm sorry I doubted you. I was thinking like an instructor, not like a field operator. Instructors teach limitations. Operators break them. Kira allowed herself a small smile. Apology accepted. Now show me something I can use in my next classroom. Show me that 1-800 meters isn't the limit. It's just where most people stop trying. Copy that. The radio clicked off, and Kira returned to her calculations with something she had not felt in hours. An ally. At 15:53, Petrov received a report that made his blood run cold. Sir, thermal imaging has confirmed a single heat signature on the eastern ridge. Position consistent with a sniper setup. Distance? 1,147 meters. He should have laughed. Should have dismissed it the way he had dismissed every other threat in his long career. But something had changed. Some instinct honed by decades of violence was screaming at him to move, to hide, to get away from the balcony and the clear sight line that connected him to that distant ridge. Get me a counter-sniper team on that position. Sir, we don't have anyone within range. Then use mortars, artillery, something. I want that ridge turned into rubble. Sir, the weather will affect accuracy. I don't care about the weather. Petrov's voice rose to a shout. I want whoever is up there dead. Now! Alexei scrambled to relay orders. Around them, the confident atmosphere of the command post shifted to something tenser, something that smelled of fear. Petrov moved away from the balcony, then stopped. No, he would not let them see him run, would not let some theoretical threat drive him from his position like a coward. The mathematics were on his side. 1,800 meters in this weather was beyond any reasonable capability. Everyone knew it. He stepped back onto the balcony, lit another cigarette with hands that trembled only slightly, and stared at the ridge. Come on, then, he muttered. Take your shot. Show me this miracle. At 15:56, the wind began to shift. Kira felt it before the instruments confirmed it. A change in pressure against her face, a slight alteration in how the snow moved past her position. The wind was turning from northeast to northwest, exactly as predicted. Brody, confirm wind shift. The corporal's voice came back immediately. Confirmed. Wind now at 12 mph from northwest, stabilizing. Holloway, I need eyes on the canyon. A pause. When Holloway spoke, her voice had lost its earlier skepticism. I'm watching. The vortex is active, spinning hard. You can actually see the snow getting caught in it. Tell me when it stabilizes. You're really going to do this? Yes. Another pause. God help us all. And Godspeed. Kira adjusted her scope, making the final calculations. Elevation, 24 minutes of angle up. Windage, 8 minutes right. She dialed in the adjustments with clicks that felt like a countdown to something enormous. Through the scope, Petrov was visible on the balcony. He had moved back slightly but was now standing in clear view again. Defiant, challenging. He had no idea what was coming. 60 seconds to window, Holloway reported. Vortex is starting to slow. Kira pressed her cheek against the stock, feeling the cold metal through her balaclava. The rifle had become an extension of her body, as familiar as her own hands, as necessary as her own heartbeat. 45 seconds, vortex still active but decreasing. She found the point in space where she needed to aim. 18 meters above Petrov's head. Empty air, a location that existed only in mathematics and faith. 30 seconds. It's slowing down. I can see it slowing. Her breathing settled into the rhythm she had practiced 10,000 times. 4 seconds in, hold for 6, 8 seconds out. Between breaths, a moment of absolute stillness. That was where the shot lived. 15 seconds. Almost there. The radio exploded with static. Then Old Bear's voice, sharp with pain. Kira, they found me. Counter-sniper team. I'm drawing them away from your position. Her heart lurched. Bear, no. Don't argue. They've got a fix on the relay station. If I don't move, they'll triangulate your position next. You'll have incoming mortar fire in 90 seconds. Through her scope, she could see activity on Petrov's position. Men pointing toward the mountains, shouting orders. Bear, get to cover. I am the cover. His voice was strained now, grunting, the sound of movement, of gunfire in the background. I'm leading them away, buying you time, but you have to take the shot now, Kira. The window is opening. Don't waste what I'm giving you. More gunfire, a grunt of pain. Bear, I'm hit. Doesn't matter. Take the shot. I can't just... You can. You have to. 43 people, Kira. 43 lives. That's what matters, not me, not revenge. Those 43 souls counting on you to do what no one else can. His breathing was ragged now, labored. Your father asked me to look after you. This is me looking after you. This is me making sure you have the chance to become everything he knew you could be. Don't waste it. A functioning Remington 700 hunting rifle, bolt action, 5-round internal magazine, every piece properly assembled, every component in its correct position. She cycled the action. Smooth, clean, perfect. Her grandfather's shadow fell across her. She looked up to find him standing there, his weathered face unreadable in the fading light. He took the rifle from her trembling hands and inspected it himself. His calloused fingers moved over the weapon with the casual expertise of a man who had spent 50 years making machines of death do his bidding. He cycled the bolt. He checked the trigger pull. He examined the barrel alignment. Then he set the rifle aside and knelt down, his old knees creaking until his eyes were level with hers. Pain is information, he said quietly. It tells you what you can endure. Most people run from pain. They never learn what they are capable of. His hard face softened, just for a moment. You did not run, little one. You did not quit, and now you know something that can never be taken from you. What is that, Grandpa? That you are stronger than you think. He reached out and wiped the blood from her hands with his own bandana. The gesture was surprisingly gentle from a man who had spent 3 decades killing America's enemies in wars that would never be acknowledged. There is something else I need to tell you, he said. Something about who I am, about who you are. Sloan waited,